Oh, this is old electronics fan, and I was playing around with something I built somewhere around 40 years ago. And the purpose of this is to allow you to have one source and be able to select what you want to record to. So say you have a turntable hooked up to 1 and you want to record to your cassette, which is on 2, or your reel-to-reel, which is on 3. You could do that. So what I've got my turntable here. I selected the source as 1, and then I set the device I have, the tape recorder that I have here, on 2 to 1, because that's the thing I want to record from. And what's interesting is that you could do multiple things on one, but I'll warn you right now, if you get a hold of one of these or build this, you will affect the audio quality if you've had more than one thing connected to the same source at the same time. Now, like I said, I built this a good many years ago, and I'd kind of forgotten how it worked. So I started diagramming it, and I got partway into diagramming it, and I got into it enough so I could finally sort out how this thing worked, because like I said, I had it hooked up and it wasn't working properly, and I said, I know I've got this wrong. I've wanted to do this now. I did not complete this diagram. As you can see, there aren't connections. Probably to do this I'd have to get my schematic diagramming software out and do that. But here's one of the things that will get you confused or screwed up. And it happens all the time when you're working with stereos, with RCA jacks, with in and out. So how this works is, this switch, number 5, is connected to the out jack. Now the signal is indeed going out of these ports. It's, like I said, you can get confused. I've done it over and over again, even though I know better. And the other thing was that because it's been so long since I made this, I couldn't remember if I had identified this properly. Because how things are supposed to work when you're dealing with hooking up, say, a cassette. Say we'll use a cassette player because it's got both an in and an out. It's very easy when hooking up a stereo to think, oh, in should go to in and out should go to out. That's not how it works. So our cassette player is connected, or our turntable is connected here. It's feeding out. This port, in order for it to work on the stereo, has to be connected to the in jack on the back of that. In my case, I have a stereo aux in with an in and an out. So this gets connected to the in on the aux, and the out from the aux goes here. And what's nice about this is that you can actually switch this so that your stereo is hooked up to this box, and you're feeding the radio into this, and you can send it to any one of these devices that you want to record, on. Because you can have 4 devices hooked up, and like I said, you can have a cassette player, you can have a reel-to-reel. A lot of people aren't going to be interested in this because they don't even have that stuff. But let me just show you what I've got, which is why I still find this useful. Let's back all out. I have all of that and that. Get my chair out of the way. And down below is my stereo. So I've got a turntable, and there's my primary cassette, which has been in one of my videos, but I also have an 8-track. I have a CD player, a recorder, and I have a 5 CD changer down there. And so I actually have more devices than I can hook up at one time. But the turntable actually is hooked directly into the stereo, so that doesn't come into play. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 devices. Oh, okay, fine. I have 4 devices. This is just sitting here because I don't have any spot to put it. These are the devices that I might use, and so I do have 4 devices, and I'm going to hook them up. And you notice that this has a 3 on it. That was how I identified what was what, and so I will do something to label the rest of these so I know which one is which. And like I said, this is a CD recorder, which I have used to make CDs for people for a variety of reasons. Doesn't happen very often, but on occasion it has been used that way. So anyhow, I wanted to get this working again, and like I said, I was kind of confused and I just couldn't remember how it worked. I just want to give you a picture inside of this before I put it back together. Looks like a snake's nest. But that's as neat as you can get it because of all of the cross connections that this thing has. Now, like I said, I started diagramming this, and I decided I didn't want to finish diagramming it because it's complicated. But let me just show you what I diagrammed so far, and for anybody who is fairly savvy, it won't be hard to figure out the rest of it. So this is the playback section, and everything gets connected to number 5 over here. It says playback, and so that's how this is used. As far as I want to play from number 1, I select 1 on that number 5 control, and it feeds it out to the stereo or the amp, whatever you're hooked up to. Now, the part that makes this complex is this part here, because you're recording from any one of these sources. So what you have to do, well, let's take number 1 here because I think I've got it diagrammed properly. And of course it goes up here to pin 1 on this first switch. And then it goes over here to the other switches. Now notice that it stops here. That's because number 1 does not need, nor should it be connected back to itself. And that's the key to wiring up this part of it. What you want to do is give yourself the ability to select the unit you want to record from minus the unit that's connected. So if we go over here to this one, this is number 4. Notice I've got 1, 2, 3, and 5. Again, 4 should not be on here because obviously if you try to record from something to itself, it's just going to feed back and you won't be very happy with it. So when you're wiring this up, just make note of the fact that the connections that you want are going to include everything else but the unit that's connected. It looks very complicated, and definitely it's a pain in the neck to try a diagram, to try to diagram, because there's just a lot of wires jumping from one switch to the other, and there's a lot going on, and it's a pain in the neck. I think I figured this out when I built it the first time, but I had looked at, because my uncle had gotten one of these, and he asked me to show him how to use it. So I had looked at the instructions. I had also looked at the schematic, and I think I borrowed quite a bit from that schematic. I don't recall grabbing the schematic and bringing it home, but I figured out how this was supposed to work back then. And then, of course, forgot. It's a long time ago. So I made myself some notes, and I reminded myself that this selector number 5, we'll notice that, let's see, where are we? Pin 5, pin 5. So if I wanted to record from the stereo, I would turn my control to number 5, and that would give me the output from my stereo. Then I could feed it to all of these. So I think this is not completely, the schematic is not complete here as far as what feeds over here to these, but I think if you look at what I've got here, it's pretty obvious. Alright, well, I'm inserting this part because there were some things I'd left out. Now this is my unit set up and ready to use. This goes off to my stereo. Got a couple of items feeding in because I may want to do some recording. These are my playback connections here. Now what's interesting about this is, well, on the realistic, the inspiration for this was the realistic tape control device. I forget the full name. I'll put a picture in it and it will have the name on it. One of the reasons why I built this was because I wanted 4 connections, not just 3. Because I had enough stuff to use all of those. That, and I thought it was going to be cheaper, and it probably was, cheaper to build this back when I was broke, and there was, than it would be for me to buy one. Because a lot of this stuff, the wiring is scrap wiring I had. All I had to do was buy the box, the switches, and these jack plates, RCA jack plates. And Radio Shack had a lot of handy stuff for the do-it-yourselfer. So anyway, a couple of things I wanted to mention was, number 1, this control is called monitor on the realistic version of this, and this is so that you can hear what you're doing, because when you select something here, it feeds it to your stereo or amp, whatever you're using, and so you can monitor what it is that you're recording or playing or whatever. You don't have to select something here in order for a device to be recorded. So suppose I had my reel-to-reel connected to this, and I want to record it to my cassette, which is connected to this. All I have to do is set this to 1. If I didn't care, if I simply just wanted to record one to another, I wouldn't have to even have my stereo on or turn this control, because the way this is wired, all of these are connected to each other's switches appropriately, so that this doesn't even matter if you're not monitoring anything. So that's just one thing I didn't put in. But like I said, I have the picture of the device that inspired this, and then I went home and figured out how I wanted to wire it up for 4 of them instead of 3. Actually, I could have used, well, back then I really only needed 4. Probably, maybe I didn't even need that much. I don't remember why. I don't remember what I had, but in any case, I actually could use more because of all the junk I got. But anyway, so I wanted to include that part because I didn't mention it, and I wanted to include the picture of the device that inspired this, and you can get them used. So if you're interested in getting something like this, they are still available through eBay or wherever, and so you wouldn't have to build anything. And as I meant, well, I think I'm going to stop there, and we'll get back to what I previously recorded. So if you have a bunch of stuff that you're playing with, just being able to switch from one item from unit to another, which I do at times, this is still very useful all these years later. It's not as useful as it was because this whole part that has to do with recording, highly unlikely that you're going to want or need that. So, but for me, how I use it is this allows me to select what device I want to play back into my stereo. And so now that I've got this sorted out in my head, and I've got myself instructions, I'll label each item with a number, hook it up to the right connection, and now I don't have to guess, because I got lazy, I'll be honest. I didn't put stickers on each of them to tell me which one was hooked up where, because in my mind I thought, well, I'll remember. No, I don't remember. That seems to be the story of my life these days. So anyway, this was just something kind of off the wall, I'm sure, for many people. But I thought, well, you know, if somebody has a lot of stuff connected and they're doing the chord shuffle to connect things whenever they want to use something different or play something different than what they currently have hooked up, it might be interesting for them to make something like this. In fact, this part of it is all you really need. So you don't need all of this if you don't have any intention of recording with this. All you have to do is get a switch that has at least 5 positions. This is a stereo switch, and so there's 2 halves to this. So you got a stereo multi-position switch, and you can set it up, and so all you really need is just the playback part and this. You don't need any of the rest of this. So for most people, that might be all you want, and if you thought about doing that, it's really not that hard. If you get this part out of the picture, this part is easy, because basically all you're doing is feeding 2 connections to the center of this stereo switch, and then you are, in fact you don't even need this part, but then you are simply connecting these 4 jacks to the appropriate connections on the switch. And all you have to do is with a switch connect from one device to another. If you are crazy enough to want to record onto something or from something, then, well, you've got this option. But this makes it a whole lot less complex if this is all you want. So this is a very short video, and I thought I would just show this because I spent a whole lot of time playing with that, and I thought, you know what, there's probably other people than me who have more than one device that they want to, from time to time, play through their stereo or amp, whatever it is that they're using. And this is definitely a handy thing that I will now be hooking up correctly. I think I had gotten these 2 swapped. It's just, over a certain period of time, it's easy to forget stuff. And like I said, I couldn't remember if I was identifying this correctly. And this is the correct way to identify this, because out means it's coming out of your device. In means that there's something coming in from a device. And I still remember when my parents first got a stereo. It was a Panasonic. I actually remember that. Wow. That was, I was 18, somewhere around there, maybe less than that, 16, when we got our first stereo. Oh man, that was over 50 years ago. But I remember that thing. That was a nice little unit. But I made the mistake of hooking things up backward. I think they may have gotten a cassette player or something with it. But I did that more than once, got it hooked up backwards. So you've got to remember what this is telling you. Signals coming out of this box, coming in from another box. That's what that's all about. And for those who are a lot younger and aren't used to dealing with this, and maybe are getting into vintage electronics, you've probably figured it out on your own. I had to, I did, because things didn't work. And I had to think it through and say, oh, wait a minute. That's not going to work, because in to in and out to out, this doesn't, that's not how this works. So anyway, so I'm going to wrap up with this. And like I said, this is a very short, I wanted to do shorter videos, but it seems like whenever I get involved in doing things, it takes a long time. So I'm going to definitely bail out here. And if you've watched this, and it's been useful, I'd be really appreciative of the comments. If you find this helpful and useful, let me know. Or if you don't think it's all that helpful and useful in this day and age with our modern stuff, well, if you have a multimedia amplifier, then they've got this kind of switching system built into it. My old realistic stereo does not have that option. Thankfully, it's got an aux out and in, and I can hook that up to this, and then I can hook up all those other things. But anyway, so thanks for watching if you have watched this far, and I've got parts coming for my other projects, so hopefully I will be recording something new in the not too distant future. Just waiting on the parts, and you know how that is today. So anyway, thanks. Hope to see you soon.